How many people we have on Zoom?
10.
All right,
Wow.
people. Miss Sherri Gregory, will you please come on up and sit in the hot seat for us? Thank you so much for being willing to come on up here and share your story and the wisdom with us. We've been doing this for a while and you're pretty darn successful at it, so it's pretty cool that we get to hear from you today. So thank you.
Yes.
Okay, and we are recording this part, correct? All right, you're on record. The topic today.
We'll let you run through legal first.
Yeah.
Right, we're cheese, so I don't have to worry about that. Exactly.
The topic today is how to avoid fallout with Miss Sherri Gregory. And before we get started and actually digging into that topic, I would love for you to tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, real estate story.
Oh, so I guess I could start by saying I've been in the business about 27 years. I've been with Keller Williams for 14 years now. Is that right? 2010. So
Almost
2013. So 10 years. Yeah. Been with KW for 10 years. I love what we do. I still have great passion for delivering the dream of home ownership. And so our team, is all, they're the same as, what I am. So I think I've got a great group of people that we get to do this team thing together. So it's been wonderful. What else would you like to know? Well, tell us from your perspective what has changed. What changed for you, maybe a little bit of your story when you came to KW before you were to transaction. What changed for you? Yeah, so I was with an independent brokerage before I came to KW, and I actually went to a family reunion. And when I went there, because people work, most people don't get the training that we get in KW. We're really spoiled there, right? And so when I was there, I always loved growing, and I would go to classes and try to always skill up consistently all the time. I'm always excited about those type of things. And when I went to family reunion, I heard things that I had never seen or heard before, and it was amazing because everybody shared with each other, and that was something I wasn't used to either. I mean, everybody kind of kept everything to themselves, and they never would share what they did. And here I was, KW, and everybody was sharing everything, and they wanted everyone to do better. So it was very refreshing. I can say that change for me was really difficult. I probably would not have made that change had it not been for Chelsea.
Yeah.
It takes a village, right? And so, but one of the best changes I've ever made. So, super happy.
And you have a team of about how many agents right now?
Agents, there's 10 of us, and then admin, I want to say there's 6. So I think there's around 16 of us.
And your goal for the year is, how many units is the goal for the year?
300.
300 units. Awesome. And where are you at right now?
We're at 84. So we're going to the goal a little bit, right? Which we anticipated there'd be about a 30%, decline this year. However, we're doing a contest right now, and it's been pretty successful. Yep. We have about, I think, 82 listings, and we have about 44 pendings right now. So we've got some newer agents that are coming on board too with us. So a couple of those are newer, and it's been real exciting.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. So when we talk about how to avoid fallout,
Right.
and there's always a market of the moment. You've been in this business, I think you said 27 years.
Yeah.
So you've had different markets.
Right.
Every year is a different market. What's our current market?
Well, I think, conversations change during different shifts or different markets. And I think we all have to make sure that we have enough knowledge to understand what it is. So we go through numbers consistently so that, everybody knows what to be saying during listing presentations, because those do change, right? If we're seeing a lower, there's lower inventory, we know that, that's a seller's market, right? However, if we're seeing a decline in closed units, that means that we need to be explaining those type of things to sellers. However, I think there's one thing that never changes, right? When it comes to real estate, I, started thinking about this, and I had a mentor talk about this at, some point. And what he said is, he goes, a lot of times the reason there's fallout, it's due to trust. There's something in the transaction that took place that trust They'll by the wayside. It's so good. And it's not just with the other agent, it's with clients, it's in the situation. And I think we can all go back and look at some of our transactions or whenever something like that's happened and say, okay, what was it that went wrong? I know that the Harvard Business Review did have a thing that said for trust, there's 3 components to trust. One of those is logic. The number 2 one was there's logic, there's authenticity, and empathy. So out of those 3 things, you have to see where you're at and what you're doing. So what they mean by logic, that's just knowledge, right? That you have to have enough knowledge that the other person understands or trusts you to get the deal done, or that you're going to do the things that need to happen because you're knowledgeable enough to do that. You have enough logic, right? The other one is the authenticity. That means you're true to who you are. When people see you or know you, they know that you're real, right? And they feel that from you. And then the empathy is just caring, being a person who cares, asks questions, doesn't do all the talking. And I found that if you have those 3 components that you're working with, that you're going to be successful, keeping transactions together for the most part. I've also noticed though that, everybody leans one way or another, right? Some people are pretty driven, really direct. So that empathy part does come across, a little bit colder at times for people. And so you have to have cues to yourself to say, okay, if I'm dealing with another direct person, that's fine. They won't really care about the empathy part. But there's a lot of people, they really want to know that you care. So if you do that as well, and that's even on co-brokers too, So our communication in that area is very, very key. And I've noticed that, that's what we all have to be assured of, is that the ego part goes away, because our job is to make buyer and seller come together and make it a win-win for both of them. Right. So I have noticed that it doesn't matter what market we're in, but if we can have the trust and those 3 components, you guys can hold deals together. And I also say, don't give up so easy either. So many people want to throw in the towel and just say, oh, it's not going to work out. I'm like, no, go back and figure out a solution. What else can happen to make that deal work out? I honestly, I have deals that will go sideways at least 3 times before I let them die. And I end up closing more properties because we make sure that we work it out. My team, I know them all the time. Well, what, did you figure it out? Did you ask more questions? And a lot of times there's a solution.
Yeah, it's not a no, it's
So good.
it's how can I make it a yes?
That's right. That's right. And also when you go to your clients and stuff, have a solution before you give them the problem. A lot of times your approach with them, approach and timing is everything when it comes to your clients and agents, right? So if you're going in with a repair addendum, a lot of times I'll get bids and supply it to the seller, because we have contractors that, will get us bids and they're pretty affordable. And so, but when a seller sees a list of, 20 items on a repair addendum, they get overwhelmed. The listing agent gets overwhelmed. But if I have a bid that goes with it, that shows, oh, it's only like, $1,600, not $12,000 that they were thinking before they seen the bid, it helps deals come together also.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question, Sherri. Sure. A lot of times they hear, in leadership, we hear, well, I'm not going to ask my clients to do that because, it's my job to protect them, right? Rather than coming with a solution, they feel like they're protecting them. What's your perspective? Yeah, that's really tough. However, I think a lot of times it's getting through to the agent also to say, I really think it's in your best interest and your seller's best interest to at least not have to start over and see if we can create a win for your seller and for my buyer, so that they don't have to go back on the market and wait another 30 to 45 days before it closes again. And that's a what if on whether or not, the market, if they're going to bring another buyer. And did you guys realize I even will run statistics with agents too, to say, sales are down 30%, it's not the same market we were in 30, a year ago. So it might be, in everyone's best interest to figure out a way to make this close.
It's also a what if that the next buyer is not going to ask for the exact same thing.
That's right. And you can say that too, right? Well, your seller's now going to be up against the same issue, right? I love what you're saying, because this is what I'm hearing. Don't terminate, negotiate. That's exactly right. Go back to that other agent and negotiate the wins. Haven't we all had those where you just get a termination via email? You don't get a call, nobody tells you why. And then you're calling them and saying, why are you terminating? Pull this back. I mean, I think we can make it work, And then they'll be like, oh, I didn't think your seller would do that. I don't know.
Until you ask.
There's that same person. That's actually what it is. Yep. Anyways, but those 3 keys are pretty important, I think, when it comes to trust.
So that was kind of an overall, is there anything currently with our current market that you're seeing attributes to fallout? Anything that you see now happening?
Kind of what we were just talking about. I think people give up too easy. I think that they have to understand that, it's our jobs to make it work if we can. I mean, yeah, you can't beat a dead horse. I'm not expecting that either, but I think there's a lot of solutions. And as long as us as agents are being those, problem solvers, it'll help change that. Also, I think that we all, as far as listings, if listings are sitting on the market, it's a different conversation. We have a formula. If you're not getting if you have a pending offer, it's priced right. If you have, right? But if it's sitting on the market and you're getting low showings and no offers, that means that you're off your price by probably 8 to 10%. Or if you're getting absolutely no showings and you're probably 10% or more overpriced. And so those are conversations we need to be having with sellers too, and we have it in our listing presentation. That way, if you have to go back and do a price reduction, you've already set yourself up for them knowing that is a possibility. I think it's being proactive in real.
That leads to my next question. I was going to ask you, what do you do? Let's stick with sellers at this point, and then we'll move to buyers.
Okay.
What are the prevention things you do to avoid fallout even happening?
Fallout in transactions or fallout in listings?
So starting with sellers, which would be starting with listings. What are the things, and you can do it at the very beginning, like you just talked about. Yeah, when you take a listing, you just talked about one strategy all the way to keeping it together at the end with the seller. How do you set it up to avoid it going out with the seller, starting with the seller?
Well, I would say a lot of it is just making sure that you have data to support what you're saying to them, because that's very valuable. They can hear you say whatever, but when you show them, really statistics, there's lots of, reports you can pull from multiple listing surveys, but you make sure and let them know, hey, this is what the market's doing now. That way you're telling them things they can't find on Zillow, right? And make sure that you're explaining pricing with them very well, because with listings, that's what it's about, right? It's price, and then condition as well. I would say, as far as the fallout part, though, I make sure that you communicate with your sellers at least on a weekly basis. There's still multiple offers happening in certain price points, but then in other price points, they may sit a little longer. And if they're overpriced, they are going to sit right now. At least that's what works for them. Yeah. And so you need to be having those conversations on a weekly basis just to make sure that they're hearing from you. But we went 2-3 years with, we didn't have to have any conversations with sellers other than have got an offer. Right.
Great skills there.
Yeah.
Right?
And so, it's a different, it's different now. So we have to make sure that we're skilled in those areas. Yeah. And making sure we're having those conversations.
So flipping it to buyer side, what are you doing to discuss, keeping your transaction together before it even becomes an issue? There's certain things you do with your buyers to prepare or prevent it.
So one of the things I think where the fallout happens is repairs, right? It's always, it tends to always go by the wayside whenever repairs show up or after inspections. And so I always make sure that when we do talk with buyers, we tell them, hey, it's Oregon. There's going to be things that are going to show up on an inspection report. So all it is for us to figure out what's, what doesn't meet, that doesn't meet, lending standards and safety and the things that, are important to you. But just know going into it, there's going to be some things that will show up, because for them to think that, they're going to have a perfect inspection, they have some issues that show up. Usually there's corrective measures. And I tell them that. Just remember when we're doing our negotiations, there's typically, always things that can be corrected. We can find sellers to help us and do these things for us.
That's one of the things I always found with my business is that buyers only thinking about their transaction. And as a real estate agent, you go, this is pretty normal for what I see with all my buyers. This inspection is a pretty normal inspection for this age of a house. And if you can give them that wider range, right? Because they're only thinking about that, right?
Yes.
And that's where your expertise. I've worked with many buyers that have had the same kind of thing happen. And here's how what we experienced and how we dealt with it. That's what they're hiring for.
That's right. And it makes them feel better too. I mean, they're not scared at that point either, right? They feel more confident.
So one of the areas for buyers would be inspections, repairs. Another area is financing that can cause some problems. What do you do with to try to prevent any financing issues?
Well, we need to be communicating with the lender for sure. And we need to have some kind of relationship with that lender to know that when they give an approval letter, that it's really an approval letter, right? There's a difference between a pre-qualification letter and a pre-approval letter. Yeah. Even on a listing side, you need to be doing that for your sellers too. So that whenever you get an offer, if there's, a lender there that you're not familiar with, you should call them and see and just question them. We do that every transaction just to be assured. And then there's times when you get an approval letter from a lender, you'll shoot them a text. I will say, hey, I just got this offer. What do you think? Are they, solid? Should I have any concerns? And they usually will respond right back and let you know.
When it's a lender that you aren't familiar with, you ask them, has an underwriter looked at the file?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's good. Yes.
Questions?
Do you ever switch your buyers to different lenders when they come to you with a pre-approval or a pre-qual of a lender you don't know?
Yes. Yeah.
You write it in a counter quote, right?
No.
Okay.
No. So if a buyer comes to us with a lender and if they have a preference on that lender, they've had a good experience or refer to the lender, that's great. We still want to have conversations with that lender just to know that they've done their due diligence and they've done what needs to happen. But I would say if it's somebody that we know we've had bad luck with, then we really have a conversation around that to say, I don't want you to have a bad experience. We've had some experiences that haven't been, the best. I would love to at least have you reach out to a couple of our lenders that we have had good luck with, and I think that you guys would be happier in the long run.
Yeah.
And they usually will do that.
Yeah. Good. Overall, just in general, when you're talking to real estate agents and they ask this question, what are the few things that you do as a professional to prepare for this type of market, where we're seeing more follow-up? What are things you do to make sure you're on top of your game?
Well, we do daily power ups every day. So we're going through the contracts. We're, making sure we're scripting and role playing, and we make sure that we're always, becoming more skilled of what we do. I don't think that we should be practicing on clients. I think that we should be knowledgeable. And if they, if we have clients, I want them to get the same experience from Kevin as they do from me. And so we make sure that we're really heavily in education and training.
Okay, preparation, that's your preparation.
Prepare. Mm-hmm.
And
And know the market, right? We look at statistics. You guys should understand that. You don't want to not understand what's happening in the market, how many active listings we have. Those are things that we should be talking about on a regular basis.
And I know I've been to your team meeting that every week you guys pull up the statistics and talk about what's happening now, what happened a year ago, what happens quarterly. You guys are discussing it as a team every week. Yeah. Follow up on that one? Does anybody in the audience have any questions? You got it.
Melinda, yeah.
I have a quick question. Just because I'm working currently with a buyer that it's a couple, and half the couple is kind of moving forward, and the other one is very cold feet. And they're in a transaction. They have had several failed transactions, failed to win the offer. And they switched to me as a realtor because they were told by a former client of mine that I would be a bulldog for them, that I would be aggressive, right? So they wanted someone aggressive, but is what they told me. But one is all in, and the other one is sort of like, oh, but I really like that neighborhood over there. While we're within 2 weeks of closing. And so I'm trying to be empathetic and logical. And like, we're in this to win this, we won the offer. So I just wondered what you do when you sense that not both sides aren't necessarily equally committed, or even when you get, like you said, flaky buyers that just go like, oh, bad inspection, we're out. And, don't even want you to just terminate. So, but anyway, what do you do with that situation?
I would say a couple of things. So if they've had other sale fails, or have they've had
No, not sale fails. No, they just didn't win the offer in a competitive bidding war on each house.
Right. And now you have them in contact.
Correct.
So out of the two, who's the decision maker?
That's a good question. Like I said, very different personalities.
Right.
And so one's more decisive, but I still think the other one has
Just
a
as
lot
much
of sway.
Sure.
One's more emotional.
Well, and I guess maybe asking some questions of them
And she may just have a personality trait where she's always gonna be nervous and never, be probably fully satisfied, could be, right? And so maybe the one that is really persistent, knows what they want, you can ask some questions around that. I would say, how is she, if it's the she that's kind of backing out, I don't know. But I'd be asking some questions around that. But if you're only 2 weeks from closing, you're gonna have to tell them, hey, we're getting only 2 weeks from closing. You guys are gonna lose your earnest money. We're already into this deal, this much money, because they probably paid for an inspection and an appraisal, and do they own a home, or have they ever owned a home?
Yes, they own a home, but they sold it.
They sold it already.
Yeah, they have a big down payment because of that.
Mhm. I think it will work itself out, but I also think that making sure to have all the pros on the reason why they're buying there and why they like the property might help too.
Okay, that's a great idea.
I usually will do that as well. So remember, it's got this, this, and this, and this is what you liked about it.
Mhm.
Usually helps.
And some of the hesitation may be more around, I don't know what's going to happen next, so I'm hesitating to be all in. So it's kind of ask questions, find out if that's the issue, and then you can say, here's what's going to happen next. Here's the next step. Here's, how we're going to get through whatever the
And
next phase
refocus on
is.
why they made their offer and why they wanted that property.
Yeah,
Okay,
That way you bring back the emotion into the.
yeah. And if she's wanting to look at other houses, you can say, here's what happens if we go that route. Here's what the next steps would be. And you can kind of pitch that in such a way that they want to stay in the deal they're in. They don't want to lose their earnest money.
Right, and they don't want to start over again.
Right.
And it is a good neighborhood still.
exactly.
And it is the house that they wanted when they wrote their offer.
Thank you. That helps.
Oh, good.
Zoom people, you can ask questions also. Any other questions? Anybody? There's a